Hey, Conceptual Concept 6.9 here to talk to you guys today about passive night vision shooting and why it might be a route you want to choose. There are quite a few benefits here. A few of them I have not heard talked about by other YouTubers, so I definitely wanted to address that. As well as I'm going to kind of go into the tools of this and what I prefer to use for these situations. So let's go ahead and start with the reasons why I think this is a pretty damn good option for shooting under night vision. Let's start with cost. You just dumped between 2.5 and 12K to be able to strap that night vision to your noggin, and now you need a way to aim it. So aiming passively is definitely going to be the most affordable option. Let's start with how you're going to aim. Most of us have a red dot equipped to our rifle already, so you have that squared away. Secondly, there are spots that night vision is too dark to see in regardless, so you're going to need an illuminator. Now, a really good illuminator can be had between $300 and $500, and I'm going to go into those options later in this video. So second reason would be signature reduction. Night vision has become more and more commonplace between militaries around the world and the US civilian market. So passive shooting really is the king of signature reduction. We all buy suppressors with that intent in mind as well, and I think passive is also another way to be prudent in that. Now, there might be chances you need an IR illuminator, but it is more of a last resort, oh, I can't see that, instead of, oh, I need to aim, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that laser. So if you can see the target, you're able to shoot it, go ahead and you give away as little of your position as possible. So definite benefit there. So one of the biggest but least talked about reasons is training transfer. So assuming you're using the same red dot during the day as you use at night, the way you hold your head, the way you hold your rifle are all identical under night vision. So one of the huge benefits there is recoil control, aiming stability, all of that is almost identical to during the day. And we all know muscle memory is a real thing. Past that, if you shoot white light at all, using your IR illuminator is almost identical as well. It maintains that light discipline versus using a laser. So you can aim, you can shoot. If you can't see, if there's a dark spot, you go ahead and shine that illuminator on. Turn it off as soon as you know that's clear, continue. It's a huge benefit there. It's probably the biggest reason why I switched. I've actually had multiple different laser illuminators. I've had the Purse 3, I've had the Steiner D-Ball D2, I've had the Holosun LE312, I believe it is. I've used all of those, and I've switched to passive because I find that training transfer is almost the most important part to me for shooting under nods. So all that being said, let's get into a few of the products I like and recommend heavily, as well as the pros and cons on those products, and maybe a few demonstrative videos on how they work. Right, for passive aiming, I recommend running a red dot, and I like it high, at least, I'd go at least 1.93, but I like it a little higher. But I've got two options to show you, and it's mainly to describe the differences between the two and why, like, for a single tube, I recommend something differently than dual tubes. So for a single tube, I definitely recommend going with a smaller red dot unit. The reason why is the red dot unit like this actually washes out in your field of view. So you end up with this dot kind of hovering in nothingness when you're looking through it. And so very usable. You don't lose a lot of situational awareness. You still have your 40-degree field of view. So it works great for that. It's also light. Downside is you have a smaller window, so you have to be more careful where you are lining up. Now, I shoot like this all the time, so I really like this, and I don't mind it one bit. So That or a T2 pattern. The T2 pattern is great. It's still small enough where it kind of washes out when you're looking through it and you get good field of view. You still have that standard 40-degree field of view. You're not missing anything, right? So I definitely recommend something a little smaller for running a single tube. Now for dual tubes, well, let's get into the downside of this with a single tube first. So a Comp M4 has a very large body. It takes up a lot of your field of view, and even with a single tube, you still get that body blocking your vision. So you kind of end up with a toilet paper roll in a toilet paper roll effect. So the body takes up the outside of your image, and then after you get into that, you get this small field of view coming through the tube. So I don't recommend something like this if you're running a single tube. If you're running duals, it's not a problem, because duals, you have that 40-degree field of view. Your left eye will take over where your right eye is failing. But with a single, I don't particularly like this option, and I'm going to be removing it off this rifle. Now, I did want to add EOTechs are excellent for both. I just don't have an example of one here. So if you have an EOTech, don't fret. It is still an excellent red dot aiming solution and will work with both a single tube and dual tubes. It's kind of the king. Right, so we're going to go over a few different IR illuminators here. I've got 4 available. I'll cut in some video of how they perform and what they do. So we're going to start with the most cost-effective option, which is the Surefire Vampire. Why is cost-effective? It's not particularly cheap, but it does both. So it does white light and IR. It is a pretty good white light. I'm actually pretty happy with its performance in that regard. However, the IR is very floody. So we'll go ahead and cut in some video. It illuminates really well if you've got a very short range and not a lot of brush, not a lot of objects for it to reflect back towards you. But it's probably my least favorite of these 4 options, just because it's all flood and no throw. So in the woods, I've found that it's really easy for this to reflect off of branches, off of trees, and it actually can auto-gate your tubes a little bit, which is suboptimal. Not exactly what you want, but it is an option. It works fairly well, and just to get started, it will do what you need, 90% of what they need to do, but not my top pick. All right, so next up is going to be the Malkoff head. I don't exactly remember which model this is, so I'm going to go ahead and annotate this in the video. However, this is a fairly good light. It's a dedicated IR light, non-adjustable, but it has fairly decent throw. I'm pretty confident with this guy out to about 200 yards. It illuminates that well. Also, it can be used a little closer because it is more of a widespread beam. My favorite option, well, one of my 2, this is the Z-Bolt Blazer IR LED unit. It is a head. It fits on 18650 and 18350 Surefire style bodies, as well as you can get an adapter to go on the 300 and 600 Scout series. So it's a very versatile light. It is, I don't know if you've seen the D-Ball D2, it is very comparable in power to that. Has a focusable head, which is really, really nice. So up close, you can really open that up, get a good flood. But if you need to focus further away, you just tighten that beam up and stretch it out. So this guy works really well. It is probably my favorite unit. So lastly, you'll notice that the color on this head has changed. That's because this is a prototype. This is a Z-Bolt Blazer IR, but it is a V-cell. So it's significantly more powerful. It is a laser-based illuminator, but man, this thing is a beam. I'm going to go ahead and roll in some footage now. But I really enjoyed this. For longer range shooting, I think it is fantastic. If you're doing coyote shooting, or if you have a rifle set up with night vision scope and you're really trying to stretch it out, this guy is ridiculously powerful. The mountains in the background of this video, I believe, reach out 800, 900 yards. And this guy just beams right through it, man. It's ridiculously powerful. This is a prototype model. You'll notice that there is some donut hole effect on the beam. John from Z-Bolt has actually reached out and told me that this guy is that has been designed out, which I think is kind of a double-edged sword. I really actually like the donut effect for area target shooting out to 300 yards because this beam focuses so much. The donut hole gives you kind of a clear point of aim, a centering point in that beam, which I really enjoyed. However, that being programmed out, you will get a clear image, which is actually probably the better of the two. I just really found I didn't mind the donut hole. I really enjoyed that. It is super duper bright. I really enjoyed that part of it. But once I got close, I did notice that it was almost too bright for my night vision, even opened up. So it's a trade off. Personally, I still like the Blazer IR LED head a little more, this guy. Just because up closer, it's not quite as bright. It's still plenty bright, but it's not too bright for your night vision, you know? But as you can see, side by side, these heads are identical. I'm going to keep running this V-cell one for a little while longer. Just try it out. But it is pretty freaking rad. It is insanely powerful. It should be out in, I believe, March or April is what John was telling me, but don't quote me on that. But if you're looking for something for coyote hunting with looking out a little further than, 100, 200 yards, this is definitely a hard one to beat. I'd highly recommend it. So all in all, I think Z-Bolt out of the four offerings offered the two best. Both price and performance is there, and those would be what I'd recommend. The one downside to them is they are a little larger than the other two options, but man, the performance is worth it. So past that, just consider liking, commenting, and subscribing if you like this kind of content, and don't be afraid to go outside, touch grass, and eat ass, alright guys?